Welcome to my guide for the Key Stage 2 Year 6 SATS SPAG test. Question 1 says, tick the sentence that must end with a question mark, so we know that must be a question. And if you read them all, you can tell that this one here is a question. When are your cousins expected to arrive? That's the answer. Number 2, insert a semicolon in the correct place in the sentence below. Come and see me tomorrow, semicolon. I will not have time to see you today. Which sentence uses capital letters correctly? Well, we're looking for proper nouns, so names of places, names of people, etc., and start of sentence. So the sentence that fits all those elements is Manchester, Kajal, and Jamal, so they're all the names, and at the start of the sentence, that's the answer. This question is asking you to decide what the prefix miss means. It's added to the word read to make the word misread, and it's asking you to come up with a definition. So what does the word misread mean? Well, it means to read incorrectly. Number 5, which verb form completes the sentence? If you read the sentence, there's always a clue to tell us what tense it's in. And if you look at this sentence here, it says that she gave a television interview, so we know that that is past tense. Now, by a process of elimination, we can have a look that was collecting, that's in the past tense, had collected, that's past tense, is collecting and has collected is not past tense. So it's going to be one of these two, and if you insert them into the sentence, after Disha had collected her medal, she gave a television interview. That sounds correct, and if we try this one, after Disha was collecting her medal, she gave a television interview, so that's definitely not right. It's this one here, had collected. Number 6 is testing your knowledge of standard English. These ones are quite straightforward. If you read the sentence and it sounds like you're talking to your mates, or it's a strong colloquial accent like you're from Yorkshire, then you know that it's not right. So looking at this first one here, the last place I saw Jack and Gwen was in the playground. That's obviously the right answer, because if you put were in there, it doesn't sound right. The last place I saw Jack and Gwen were in the playground. See, it doesn't sound right. At the museum, there was many interesting exhibits, or there were many interesting exhibits. We know that it's plural, so it must be were. The bikes was lined up for the start of the race, or the bikes were lined up for the start of the race. Again, it's plural, bikes, more than one, so our answer is were. Number 7, tick the option that correctly completes the sentence below. So we're looking to see which phrase makes sense and is punctuated correctly. And if you know your knowledge of fronted adverbials, you'll know that it tells us when, where, or how. And if you look at in 1998, that's telling us when. So that bit there, that phrase in 1998, is a fronted adverbial. So it's this one. In 1998, comma, snowboarding became an official Olympic sport. Number 8 is checking your knowledge of commas again. Which sentence is punctuated correctly? It's setting out a set of events in order. It's almost like a list. So we're looking for the sentence that has commas after the appropriate actions. So, Joe went upstairs, comma, that's the first thing he did. Turned on his computer, that's the next thing he did, comma. Took out his homework and started. Now, because this is the last element of the list, he took out his homework and started. It doesn't need a comma anywhere in there, so that one is correct. Number 9, what is the word class of the underlined word in the sentence below? So looking at the word, it says immediately. Now, it's describing how Jamal jumped out of bed. Jumping is the verb, and if it's describing the verb, then we know that it's an adverb. So that one's the right answer there. Number 10, it's asking you to insert a colon into this long sentence to make it make sense. And we know we would put a colon in when we have two separate pieces of information that have an effect on a cause relationship. So Tom needed to think carefully about his homework. It looked very difficult. The fact that it looked very difficult is a new bit of information. It links back to the fact that he had to think carefully about his homework. So the colon goes in here. There's a natural pause there as well, which is another indicator that the colon could go in. Number 11, what is the word class of the underlined words? Again, we have the girl bought a sandwich and an apple to eat for lunch. They are actually a type of quantifying determiners because it tells you how many of the nouns there are. The girl, there is only one girl. A sandwich, there is only one sandwich, and an apple, there is only one apple. So because it's giving us a quantity, it is a determiner in this case. Number 12, which sentence is punctuated correctly? Again, the man grabbed his coat, it looked cold and windy outside. So when you read that sentence, there is a natural pause in there. The man grabbed his coat, it looked cold and windy outside. Where that pause goes is where your hyphen is going to be going. It breaks up the information. So the first one is correct. The man grabbed his coat, it looked cold and windy outside. If you were to read the other sentences, you know that wouldn't make sense. So this one here is, the man grabbed his coat, it looked cold and windy outside. If you put the pause in there, it doesn't make sense, and it's the same for the other three. Number 13 is checking your knowledge of what an adjective is, and you should know that an adjective is a describing word. It gives a bit of extra information to the nouns. Which sentence uses round as an adjective? So which sentence has the word round that describes a noun? And if we look here, this third one down, the castle had a round tower. The tower is the noun, and this is describing the tower. It's round, therefore it is the adjective. If you were to look at the other ones, the dog ran round in circles. The round bit is the adverb. It's describing how the dog ran. The second one, there was a round of applause. A round of applause is a noun. It's a thing. And the last one, the team has already made the final round. Again, the final round is a thing. It's the thing you want to make if you're the best football team. You want to get into the final round. So therefore, again, it's a noun, not an adjective. Number 14 is asking you to look at the brackets and see which one has been used correctly. Using brackets adds a bit of extra information. So the town is 10 miles, 16 kilometers away. The extra bit of information is telling us that 10 miles is actually 16 kilometers. So 16 kilometers is the extra bit of information. You didn't need to add that. The town is 10 miles away would have been fine. But because they've added in an extra bit of information for the reader, that's going to have the brackets around it. So 16 kilometers will have brackets around it. So the answer will be the first one. Number 15, test your knowledge of proper nouns. And again, we're looking for names, places, and starts of sentences. A few of these aren't correct. So seeing a play in the first one, a play is just a normal noun, a common noun. It doesn't need a capital P. Number 2 isn't correct because doctor doesn't need a capital D. Number 3, class visit doesn't need a capital letter either because it's not a proper noun. And the last one, he is trying to swim the English Channel. The English Channel is a place, so therefore it needs the capital letters. It's a proper noun. And we also have one at the start of the sentence, so that is our correct one. Number 16 is asking you to put a subordinating conjunction in the space here, and you might know the acronym a white bus to help you remember subordinating conjunctions. If you don't, try Googling it now, a white bus subordinating conjunction. It will come up with a handy poster that you can have a look at to help you remember. So because I know quite a few of the subordinating conjunctions off the top of my head, Tracy decided to walk something, it was a lovely day. The subordinating conjunction is because. Tracy decided to walk because it was a lovely day. Number 17, saying which sentence is an exclamation. An exclamation would have an exclamation mark at the end of it, but they've removed that so that it makes it more difficult for you. Now, you should know that an exclamation usually starts with the word what or how. In the first sentence, we have, what time did the sun set last night? Well, we know that that's a question, so that one can't be an exclamation. The next one says, what a spectacular sunset that is. And the fact that this person is exclaiming that, what a spectacular sunset that is, that will need an exclamation mark, so therefore that is the exclamation. Number 18 is asking us which sentence uses the word book as a verb. We know that book can be used as a noun because we have the book that you read at school, but it can also be used as a verb if you want to book something. So if you wanted to book tickets for something, or if you wanted to book a holiday. So looking at these sentences here now, we need to find the sentence that has the word book as a verb in it. Now, if we look at the first one, it says we decided to book tickets for the football match. Well, it's a process of doing something, it's an action. We have to book the tickets, so that one is a verb. So our answer is this one. Number 19 says insert a pair of commas in the correct place in the sentence below. Now if we look at this sentence, it actually has something called a relative clause in it. I enjoy sitting in my bedroom even though it's quite small. The bit that's a relative clause is even though it's quite small, because we're talking about the bedroom. The clause is relative to the bedroom. So I enjoy sitting in my bedroom even though it is quite small. So the commas go after bedroom, just before the relative clause, even though it is quite small, and at the end of the relative clause. So I enjoy sitting in my bedroom even though it's quite small and listening to music. So this is a relative clause, so it needs to be encapsulated by the commas. Number 20 is asking you to put some pronouns instead of repeating yourself. And you should know that pronouns are things like he, she, they. So in this case, it says, for his 9th birthday, James visited his grandparents. And because we're talking about his grandparents again, we can actually say they. So James visited his grandparents and they took James to the cinema. We've already mentioned James, so it is him. You can check to see if it's correct by putting the pronouns back into the sentence and reading it. For his 9th birthday, James visited his grandparents and they took him to the cinema. I'm happy with that. It makes sense. Therefore, that's correct. Number 21 is testing your knowledge of speech punctuation. And you should know that if we have the person speaking at the beginning, so in this case, Abdul called out, then we always need a comma after that phrase. So Abdul called out, comma, before the speech starts. So we can eliminate the second one here because that doesn't have one. And you've also got to remember every time somebody starts to speak, their speech needs a capital letter. So again, this one can be eliminated. So we've got 1 and 2 out of the question now. And this is a good technique to use if you really have no idea when you're doing the SPAG test. Look at the ones that it definitely isn't, and then you can take an educated guess. And the last clue to help us, we know that any punctuation needs to go inside the speech marks, or the inverted commas. So looking at the last one here, Abdul called out, comma, capital letter, will you come and help me, question mark, then the closed inverted commas. That is how you punctuate speech correctly, so that one is correct. Number 22, which sentence is most formal? Now we know that if something is formal, it's very proper. It's like as if you were talking to the Queen, not how you would talk to your friends. So if we have a look at these 4 sentences, the first one, your presence is requested at the wedding of our daughter. That one is incredibly formal. And a clue that tells you that something's informal is if it has a contraction in it. So by that I mean using the word wouldn't instead of would not, or we'd instead of we would. So the answer is this one here, the first one we read. Your presence is requested at the wedding of our daughter. Number 23, which underlined group of words is a subordinate clause? Now a subordinate clause tends not to make sense by itself. So looking at the underlined sections here is, you can walk with us. Well, that does make sense. The next one, this is the best fishing spot. Again, that would make sense. And the third one, we change places when the bell rings. When the bell rings by itself doesn't make sense. We're waiting for that extra bit of information. So in this case, that one is the subordinate clause. Number 24 is asking you to circle words that are antonyms, and antonyms are words that mean the opposite of each other. So hot and cold would be an example. Looking at the sentence here then, what looked like a worthless collection of rusty metal turned out to include ancient coins and valuable jewellery. It's sometimes easy to spot these antonyms straight away, at other times it takes a little bit of looking, but look at the adjectives, that's normally a good place to start. So the first adjective is worthless, and funnily enough that is the one that we're looking for because the opposite of worthless is very valuable, so there's valuable. So we would circle those. Number 25 asks you to look at the sentence and see whether the apostrophe is being used for contraction or for possession. In the first one it says, where is Karen's pen? Well, we know that the pen belongs to Karen's, it's her possession, therefore it's a possession. The second one says, Joshua's hungry. Well, that's short for Joshua is hungry, so the fact that it's short for something means it's a contraction. Please get the dog's dinner. The dinner belongs to the dog, so it's possession. And the last one, the cat's outside. That's short for the cat is outside, therefore it's a contraction. Number 26, which sentence contains a relative clause? Now a clue for this one is to look for relative pronouns. Relative pronouns are words like who, which and that in the middle of the sentence. So that's a little trick you can use if you want to save some time. Looking at the first sentence then, the boy who I met in the park is in my class. Now we have the word who in there, so the word who is a relative pronoun. So if you were to put commas around it, the boy, comma, who I met at the park, comma, is in my class, well, we have a relative clause there. So that one is the correct one. Number 27 says which sentence is a statement, and a statement is usually just a little bit of information or a fact. And the first one says you can copy the pattern from a book. Then we have be careful when you use the glue. The third one, do you use glitter to decorate the edges? And the last one, do not touch the paint until it is dry. So working from the bottom, do not touch the paint is a command. It's telling you not to do something. The one above that, do you use glitter? Well, we know that's a question. And the second one, be careful when you use the glue. Again, that's a command. It's telling you to do something or not to do something. And the last one, you can copy the pattern from a book. That's a little bit of information for you. Therefore, it's a statement. Number 28 is checking your understanding of how a sentence works. So it's asking you to put full stops and capital letters in the passage so it makes sense. When you read these passages, you're looking for a natural pause before we start talking about something else. If the sentence begins to start talking about something else, well, it may be worth going back and putting a full stop in so that we start a new point on a new sentence. So, Declan has always been fascinated by animals. He has read many books about exotic creatures. Jellyfish interest him the most, and he would like to study them when he is older. It's a really long sentence, and it definitely needs some punctuation. So, starting from the beginning, when you feel that you've gravitated towards a pause, try putting a full stop in. See if it makes sense. Declan has always been fascinated by animals. There we go. Full stop goes in there. Capital letter now, don't forget that. He has read many books about exotic creatures. Now he's talking about jellyfish. We can put a full stop in there. It's a new bit of information. Capital J. Jellyfish interest him the most, and he would like to study them when he's older. That's the same sentence, so we don't need a full stop in here. However, we do need one at the end. Don't miss that one out. If you've done all that hard work and you've not looked at the end, you've wasted your mark. Number 29 is asking us to put a pair of commas in there. Now, the fact it says a pair of commas means it could be a relative clause or it could be parentheses, so it's the same as putting brackets around it. So, Jenna, a very gifted singer, won the talent competition that was held in her local theatre. Well, this bit here, a very gifted singer, is a little extra bit of information for Jenna. So, Jenna, a very gifted singer, won the talent competition that was held in her local theatre, so that would be used as parentheses instead of brackets. Number 30 is asking you to look at the sentence and insert a verb using the right tense. So the visitors left after they something their coffee. Now this is past tense, so the visitors left after they finished their coffee. Now the next sentence, Joe usually something up early on Saturday morning and go swimming before breakfast. This is in the present tense, so Joe usually wakes up early on Saturday morning. Number 31, write a command which could be the first step in the instructions for making a sandwich. Remember to punctuate your answer correctly. In this case, they're looking for capital letter and a full stop, and I would advise that you don't use any tricky words because they could penalise you for the spelling as well. So you make it as simple as possible. I'm going to say, slice the bread. So remember your capital letter and your full stop as well. Number 32 again is asking us about clauses. So is it a main clause or a subordinate clause? And as I mentioned previously, a subordinate clause typically doesn't make sense by itself. So if we look at these sections individually and it would make sense by itself, then we know it's a main clause. And if it doesn't, it's a subordinate clause. So the first one, when the bell rang. We know that doesn't make sense by itself, so therefore it's a subordinate clause. We dashed into the playground. That does make sense, yep, so that's a main clause. And the last one, we started a game of football. That also makes sense, so that's a main clause too. Number 33, circle the conjunctions in each sentence. There's a handy acronym to remember again for subordinating conjunctions that I mentioned previously, a white bus. There's also a useful one for coordinating conjunctions, which is fanboys. If you Google those and have a look, there's posters that you can print off if you need some help remembering. So in the first one, we like to eat popcorn when we go to the cinema. Now, when in this case is a subordinating conjunction, so I'm going to use that one. The next one, although my sister likes salted popcorn, I prefer sweet popcorn. In this sentence, although is a subordinating conjunction. And finally, my brother doesn't like popcorn at all, so he buys sweets instead. So is the coordinating conjunction. Number 34 says, which two sentences contain a preposition? And a preposition is essentially where something is. So you could say on your head, behind your back, in your pocket, around the corner, in between. That's a good place to start. So if we look at the first two, he walked really quickly. There isn't anything in there that tells us where. The horse munched his hay happily. Again, it doesn't say. She ran around the games field. Well, around is the preposition, so that's one. It does say tick two, so there must be another one. In this case, it's the last one. The old man walked past the door. So we have a past and around are our prepositions. Number 35, what is the subject of the sentence below? Now the subject is the thing that is doing something in the sentence. So if we have a look here, it says on Tuesday, Mary plans to meet Aidan in Liverpool. Now Mary is doing the planning. She's going to do something. So she is the subject. Number 36, insert a comma and a dash in the correct places in the sentence below. So before we leave school, our class wants to start a vegetable garden, the first in our school's history. Now, before we leave school is a fronted adverbial, so that has a comma after it. Before we leave school, our class wants to start a vegetable garden, the first in our school's history. This bit here, the first in our school's history, is extra information relating to the vegetable garden, so that is where the dash goes. Number 37, circle the relative pronoun. There is a handy list of relative pronouns. If you just Google relative pronouns, there aren't that many and it's quite easy to remember them. So the mountain, which could be seen in the distance, had snow on top of it. Which is the relative pronoun. Number 38 is asking us to use the simple past tense of the verb. So because it's past tense, I played. And it's looking for spelling here as well, so make sure you spell those correctly. I played netball last week, but I only knew where the match was the day before. This is the one that catches people out, is to be. Some people forget that being is a verb. So it's very useful for you to go away and have a look at the different forms of be in the past tense and the present tense. Number 39 is asking us again to insert a pair of brackets. For parentheses, the highest mountain in Great Britain is Ben Nevis, 1,344 metres in Scotland. This is the extra bit of information here. 1,344 metres. Number 40, test your knowledge of prefixes. Which prefix can be added to all three words? Now we know a prefix goes before the word. It's normally a few letters and it changes the meaning of the word. So which prefix can go before secure, active and complete? Well, I know that one is in, because insecure is a new word. Inactive and incomplete all make sense. So in is the prefix. Number 41 is asking you to circle the synonyms in the passage. Now, synonyms are two words that mean the same. So looking in this section here, we have noon and midday. They both mean the same thing. They both mean 12 o'clock. Number 42 is asking us to circle the possessive pronoun. Now, a possessive pronoun is just a pronoun, effectively, that has some sort of possession attached to it. So if it belongs to that man, I don't know who he was, it is his. If it belongs to a girl and we don't know who she is, it's hers. So we're looking for the possessive pronoun in here, and I can spot it right at the end. It's there. The classroom, it was his. Number 43, which punctuation mark should be used in the place indicated by the arrow? Josh was excellent at languages. Something, he spoke French and Spanish. Now, that last bit there, he spoke French and Spanish, is relative to Josh's excellent skills at languages. It's an extra bit of information. So, when we're adding extra information, we can use a semicolon. Number 44, complete each sentence below with a word formed from the root word thought. So it's going to have the word thought in it in some shape or form. Elisa was a very thoughtful girl. The children looked something at the poster on the wall. The children looked thoughtfully at the poster on the wall. Number 45, similar to the last question. Complete the sentence below with a noun formed from the verb encourage. My friends offered me lots of something to meet my targets. The answer is encouragement. Now you have to spell it right to get the mark, so really make sure that you have checked it and you haven't misspelt it in any way. Number 46, insert 2 hyphens in the correct places in the sentence below. So looking here, it says the children have been busy cooking some healthy sugar-free snacks. Now I know sugar-free is a word we've sort of created by using 2 words, sugar-free, so the hyphen goes in between. And learning some well-known, so again for this one, well-known joins these 2 words that we use regularly to make a sort of brand new word, well-known, traditional songs for visitors to enjoy. So there's your answer. Number 47, rewrite the sentence below in the active. Remember to punctuate your answer correctly. This is the question that I find Year 6s really struggle on, is active and passive voice. Now I have done a video on that, it is on my website, so if you want to go on there and have a look, that's a really useful place to start. Now we know that in the active voice, the noun is doing something, directly doing something in the sentence. So we need to reword this so that the detective is doing something. So what we would write is the detective discovered the vital clues. Make sure you have a full stop and a capital letter. Number 48, it says rewrite the underlined verbs using the present progressive. Now if it's progressive, it is ongoing, so it's still happening. And if it's present, it's happening now. So Jim is learning French at school. He is planning to ski in the Alps in the spring. Now, again, you have to spell this correctly to get the mark normally, so really make sure that you haven't made any silly mistakes. Number 49, write a noun phrase containing at least 3 words to complete the sentence below. Now, we know that a noun is a person, place, or thing, and a phrase is a collection of words. It's not quite a full sentence. In this case, it's asking for at least 3. So our noun in this case, I'm going to use a runner, and my phrase is going to be the fastest runner in the world. So the fastest runner in the world was preparing for an important athletics competition. Last question, circle the adverb in the sentence below. And like I mentioned previously, the way to remember an adverb is that it tells us when, where, or how something's happening. So, of all the toys in his large collection, Carl's little brother liked the cuddly rabbit best. So, if you were to ask, how does he like the cuddly rabbit? Carl likes it the best. So, best is the adverb in this case. I hope you found that tutorial useful. Please give this video a thumbs up if you did. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll be sure to get back to them. Thank you.